in other words, she is under the impression that she has a financial package. But, you know, Alan would say, I've seen it happen before. People who talk to a loan officer along the way with a sense of others. But there's no law officer that I am ever aware of that doesn't first say, when you're serious, you know, your business plan. And so he's been, the last time he spoke, she was telling him about the building and how enthusiastic she was. Saying, you know, if you think you found something that you really need to go to the bank and get something, you know, for it, sure, as you go forward, you absolutely know funds. That was his last conversation. I mean, I would think, when's the last time you
I would say a week or two ago that she's definitely acting. She's trying to get things in a row. Okay, working with Alan and trying to get some other things taken care of. Now, other things taken care of will be this wrong.
Well, I mean, I guess I would simply say conversation I had with Alan. You have a financial package.
Good afternoon.
Hi, fine. Because he's saying. Hearing that she is urging, that's the case.
You have everything under control?
This is good.
Well, what ability would you think of?
That sounds good to me. And I think that we had to move the ladies didn't realize that we were not. And so they said, yes, you can come on and have the planning board. So that's why we had to move. And there's a party here at 6 o'clock.
Oh, and then we're done.
Yeah.
Dennis.
Party at the pool and, they bring this place. I'm sorry.
Dennis is the smart board, as I call it. So they'll be there.
Okay.
What I like was the idea that we could bring them up and put them back and forth. Talk about them and they
Before we already finished. Yes.
because those are the only two that we really have.
Yes.
And
And again, I'm sorry.
so Dennis, what we found out, because at some point you may get.
We're trying to do the 6 feet.
One maybe before COVID-19.
Well, let's speak up on this.
Two of
I heard, yeah.
basically our budget, the Board of Commissioners has allocated is $5 grand. Two of them One starts at 20,000 and the other at 23. So, so we have two proposals that are under the 5,000. The question is going to be, are we interested in either one? And if we are, which one do we like the best? And I think Phil and I have talked, it would be a way to spend that money, get a sense of what they would do for us in the course of the next year, how well it was received by those people that are looking at Avery County, and then say, does it make sense to spend big bucks? Or does it simply make more sense to continue and pay a lower annual now cost maintenance fee rather than the development?
No, I wish I had every.
Well, see, and that's what I said.
How's everything going with your?
I don't know. It is so good. After 2 weeks, I walked with a cane, and now I walk without everything. Everything after 2 weeks, it doesn't hurt. It's, I don't know, they know what to do. No swelling, no. So that was the pleasant event.
You haven't had an action?
No, there's an Anderson doctor over there. That's the cause of it. That's the tunnel. My orthopedic. And when I checked up on it, I said, keep on up from Virginia. And see him. So I figured that was good.
Again, I would just say, I think I learned to call what I was hearing.
I'm not there.
It's unclear.
I'm saying with your.
Well, no, I was gonna say, she owns the leather. Unclear time.
You have that regular meetings in the, where you normally are.
We have virtual meetings for
Obviously, Alan, you told me
months.
about the financials.
Like this. So you said
I think that's
the podium, we have tables spread out.
So you had this, you have visitors there.
Well, we had a live stream in here. People couldn't have more than 10 in the room.
Yeah.
But then it's set up, we live streamed it here, and people can come here.
Yeah. Transparency is harder when you have to work. This.
That would be better.
Property taxes, support system, primary funding source, sales tax revenue, fees and services. There's a part of it that's that, but the lion's share is property taxes.
So sales tax like this, might be an impact.
We finished our budget this year, we projected a 10% loss. For the year, because we don't know.
January to December.
Well, that's July through fiscal. Well, it was into the property sales taxes about $5 million. give or take. And so we budgeted with that in mind. Even though our budget, and you look for the last year's, we had more meeting rooms, doing the meeting room and the bag where we've got the budget payment for the high school, you know, and all that. That's a big cost, yeah.
Yeah, I think you guys will worry about the cost of that. When do you negotiate?
We get a monthly report based on collections, collections. And check off of that, off of the property valuation, because unfortunately, an increase in valuation because of the building and so forth, so our base, the rate and the valuation has not been, you know, we'll probably have to do a revaluation in about 2 years.
I remember when I was over there.
If our tax rate, that Warren tax has not changed in 4 years now. We're still. I don't know. It is. Ours is 48 cents plus a 7-cent fire tax, 55 cents. And a lot of counties do not include their fire tax in the tax rate. Like we use it as this will be, what's that, 7%, but it goes straight to the fire commission. They budget off of that number. It's like, oh, you didn't know everybody. Oh, you didn't know? Yeah.
I didn't recognize it.
Then, of course,
All right, everybody can have their attention. Yes. We can only stay in this room until 6 o'clock. So we need to get underway. And so I'm going to declare this meeting open. I'm going to turn it over to Dave Smith, who's going to introduce our guest speaker for today.
I met Ken on the leadership program. Ken is part of SCORE. He's going to explain all that too. So he's here today to fill us in on what SCORE does. And I'll present Ken's slot to you. Thank you.
Can we get you, if you wouldn't mind, to kind of stand up in the middle? Sure. No, that would work for you. Better. Now, I did bring a handout, but I don't know whether handouts are accepted or not accepted, or I don't know how strict people are about that.
How much is it? Oh, you mean paper, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're thinking of the other kind. I wish I could help you out. What do you do? I'll distribute it if that's okay. That's fine. Absolutely.
It's one time.
Yes. You probably have about 300 pages. And one of the people that did get introduced to this was Cinderella. And not only is she a valued member of the committee, but she very graciously is our secretary. That's my name. You can have a picture. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. If you want to vary with a lot of, do you mind if I take this on? Right ahead. If anybody else wants to take it, may I ask?
how is that? On their own?
Well, SCORE, just real quickly, what I was trying to cover this handout. SCORE started in the mid-60s, and originally it stood for the Senior Corps of Retired Executives. And it was a bunch of people that got together and decided they wanted to kind of pay back to people for their own successes in business. So that's how it was formed, and it is expanded from there. The first chapter of SCORE was in Asheville, and for reasons that nobody knows, historically, I don't understand why Asheville was the first chapter, and it's still there today. And it's actually quite a large chapter. We're here in the High Country. We're fall under the aegis of the Asheville chapter. They have about 40 or 45 counselors and mentors in that. I'm part of what we call the High Country SCORE group, and there's currently 6 of us that most of us are hanging out in Avery County and southern Watauga County. We have a couple of our mentors are in eastern Tennessee, because we cover eastern Tennessee, southern Virginia, and so on. So that's sort of this background. Nationally, we have a little over 10,000 volunteers and about 250 chapters. Now, there's probably another 250 or 500 locations because, for example, here we have Boone is called a branch. We don't call that a chapter, so we're pretty diverse and pretty spread out. 2019, this is just to give you some idea. We fall into the Small Business Administration, which is where the majority of the funding comes from. Everything that we do at SCORE is at no cost to our clients. So when people come to us and ask for assistance or whatever, everything we do is pro bono. So obviously we need to generate funds, and the Small Business Administration is the vast majority of our funding. We do have some corporate sponsors, and each chapter has different sponsors that help them out. The big one in Asheville is a company or an organization called AB Technologies, and there's some banks that provide funding just to keep us going. And there's also a lot of money comes in from personal donations that come. A lot of it comes from, frankly, the mentors that want to try to get it funding. Originally, the purpose of SCORE was to almost exclusively work on startup businesses, people that had an idea for business and wanted to get it going. And that has changed today. About 50% of what we do and is for existing businesses that either want to expand or frankly, or they're in trouble and need help trying to figure out how they're going to make it through the times that we're in. I don't have to tell you what the last 3 months have been like with our clients. I'm sure you're all experiencing the same thing. It's nothing new or unique to SCORE, but it's been. I've been doing SCORE volunteer work now for 12 years. I've never experienced anything like that. Even the downturn of 2008. This is like, and just in the small business group that I'm involved with, totally unprecedented. And it's all about the uncertainty, basically. It's interesting, most of their funding has held up pretty well. The banks in general, I belong to 2 chapters. I spend the summers up here in the High Country, and I spend the winters in Florida. And I do SCORE volunteer work there too. And the banks have really hung in pretty well with their customers and their clients. I'm pleased to see. Landlords are, be very receptive to people going to either not, they don't put free rent necessarily, but to reduced rent and things like that. So that's good. There's people kind of trying to help each other go through this all. Most of the things that we do are a lot of our work is putting together business plans for people wanting to get their business started, or they're looking for funding, or they're looking for credit or whatever. As an organization, we do not provide any funding ourselves.
We just help people get their paperwork put together, and if they're going after an SBA loan or going to just a normal regional bank to we'll try to help them put together a document that the banks are looking for. And one of the reasons that the banks typically are part of our funding source is that we provide a very valuable service for them, because as the banks have cut down on their staff, they don't have people internally anymore that put together business plans for their people looking for loans. So they hand off clients to us, and I think in many cases we were a handoff because they don't want to say no to a potential lender, but whatever. But that's a big piece of what we're doing. We also have helped a lot of companies with acquisitions and divestitures, people that are looking for help trying to put their businesses out for sale or trying to acquire a competitor or something like that. We do not go way out of our way to make sure we don't compete with professional services groups like accountants and lawyers, because that's what they do when they have their client relationships. We have one of our SCORE mentors in the high country here is an attorney in Boone, and he volunteers his services to assist SCORE clients if they do not have an existing lawyer or legal relationship, because he doesn't want to get involved in conflict between himself and other ones. But if somebody's a startup that doesn't really have a financial arrangement, he'll come in and he'll do all of his work for them pro bono, as long as he's not interfering with other relationships that they have. The SCORE chapter I belong to in Florida, we have a lady that works with us that is a CPA, and she does the same thing for clients on the accounting end of it and setting up their books, provided they don't have existing relationships. So it's just whatever the people are looking for. We get most of our clients, as I said, from a lot of them from banks, a lot of them through chambers of commerce that we work with very closely, and we will put together workshops or whatever the chamber wants to make available to its clients or to its members more quickly. A lot of it comes from word of mouth, people that have become a SCORE client and talk to their neighbors, their friends, whatever. It's you should go over here and talk to these folks if you need help. The economic development organizations, I haven't. I'm doing work currently with the Volusia County Economic Development people in Daytona. They have a couple of things they've asked me to take a look at with them. And people, organizations like that. I really think it would be best use of time if I kind of would listen to what you're on your website. I saw your objectives and your goals and things like that. I think what you're talking about are things that we could assist with if it was appropriate for you. I tend to have more of a clientele. Most of my clients tend to come to be in the hospitality and travel industries, because that's the industry I came out of. And so when people go on our national website, they can do a search for a mentor based on either geography or business interests or some combination of the other two. So if somebody goes onto the SCORE website and says, I'm looking for a mentor that can help me in travel or hospitality or things like that, then they have a menu drop down of everybody with their backgrounds and so on. Online mentoring is, in my personal case, is probably 2/3 of what I do. 1/3 is face-to-face. And it's really trending more and more that way, because of, obviously we're familiar with how the internet's changed the way everything's done. And so a lot of my clients I've never met other than through the Skype and other things like that. So that's kind of what we're all about. And we have quite a few clients in Avery County. We're bound by all of our bylaws and everything else. We're not supposed to name drop who we are doing business with and who. someone unless we have the client's permission. So the one client, she made the mistake of calling me this morning on another matter, and I said, by the way, can I drop your name tonight? So but that Carolina Mountain Life and I have been working together now for about 5 years on trying to, go through and help her with her business, and which is a fabulous local success story as far as I'm concerned. And a couple of others. I had a new client the other day. This is fascinating to me. It came off the website and through the website, and he said it is right up. The way it works is they come in, they find a member, and then they have to fill in a little form about what they're looking for and so on. And so then I get an email saying, contact this person. So I did, and it was a business guy in Boone that wanted to start, or not start. He started his own business, and he wanted some help with how to set up his books and how to keep track of his customers and all that kind of stuff. So I called him up and we got talking, and he there's just a lot of energy. And finally I said to him, how old are you? He said, I'm 17. I said, you're 17. How long have you been in business? He said, well, really seriously, 2 years. I said, 2 years. What do you, and it's a window cleaning business, commercial stores and other places, residential. And I said, really? So what else? He said, well, I'm a full-time student at Watauga High. Well, I'm also a student at Caldwell Community College. And I've got early acceptance to App State. So if I get my classwork done, I'm going to be able to go to App State, and I want to take business and computer science. So I thought this is pretty intriguing. So we've met a couple of times, and it's actually doing reasonably well. I was helping him put together a little business plan. He doesn't need financing; he's got that covered. And I said to him, "Well, call this fellow up, this Gormans are aware, and talk to him about his. Make sure you're legally up correctly." And so the last time I saw him, I said, "So did you talk to Tyler?" "Yes, I did." "Well, what do you have to say?" "Well, he thinks I should be an LLC, and I should do this, and I should do that." And I set up an LLC, and that way I can hire myself, but not yet. And I said, "Why not?" He said, "Because I'll be violating the child labor laws." I thought, no, God, I would never have thought that was me. And until he's 18, he can't hire himself. But that's kind of an extreme, but it's kind of exciting. He's a remarkable young man, so he's got a lot of potential. So that is what's kind of covered in here, just some background information about SCORE. So any questions, I would be welcome to try to answer them for you. Yes.
And let's say you like this young man, but maybe someone older, okay, contacts you, and they're really talking about a startup. What kind of time involvement, either weekly or monthly, does someone like yourself devote to getting this person up?
It really depends on the individual situation. I make myself available through the internet on the website 7 days a week. That's just a personal choice I make. You can restrict your available Monday, Tuesdays, or 7 days, or whatever. So that's I just make myself available. And then the amount of time is pretty much how far along they are in their thinking and their business process. One of the things that takes the most amount of time is one of the toughest things is to try to tell somebody that they don't really have a very good business idea, and that they're really taking a big risk, and they're putting their savings up, and they got this vision of what they want to do, but it just doesn't make sense. So for me, that's always the hardest one, because they're so excited about what they want to do in the future as they see it. But so those take a lot of time for me, and maybe it's because I'm not hard enough to tell them to take a hike and forget about it. But we think that's a big part of our responsibility is to try to talk people out of it. Or maybe it's a timing issue, like give yourself another year before you get into it, or do more research, or like think through this more than, a prime example is everybody, I'm exaggerating. So many people would like to own a restaurant because they like dining out. That's sort of the criteria. I love going to a good restaurant, so I want to own one. Well, it's statistically, I'm sure you know, it's still the #1 business failure in the United States for restaurants. So you have to try to talk to that person through that. You realize what you're getting into when you make that statement, and like really think through it. It's not slam dunk. And
It happens in our county a lot.
yeah,
Yeah, the startup and then it's closed after you go that first time.
it's tough. And right now, I built my own businesses my whole. I was in the travel industry my whole life, so I've been through a lot of pandemics in my career. Hong Kong flu, swine flu, I mean, you name it, Ebola, I mean, diamonds and customs. So we always, my wife and I owned a company together, and we always had a 6-month reserve, which is what we needed, what we needed. And when I would counsel people, I always make a big point saying, look, make sure you've got the fallback, that you've got some amount of cash that you can call, because there's, I don't know when and what, there's going to come a time when you're going to need it. And of course, when things are good, people don't think that way. They just kind of keep going and keep spending and whatever. And a big part of the problem right now for a lot of these small businesses, they just haven't taken that precaution of having the 2 months or 3 months to kind of carry them through. I know that's a long answer to your question, but it just varies. I mean, I'd say I talk to my clients after we get through the business plan and they get started. It's always most intense at the start, and then maybe once a week, or then it becomes once a month. And sometimes it's once a quarter. And once they get up and running, sometimes we talk maybe once a year.
One of the reasons, Ken, that I asked the question is that we as the EDC have an alliance with Highland Community College, and they have an actual small development business program that they offer. Part of that is a gentleman who will walk in the door, okay, and he will take you through almost everything. Doing a lot of what you're doing as well, but providing one-on-one assistance in how you're going to apply for a loan, how you're going to write your business plan, such and such. I guess what I'm wondering is, would you say that SCORE would be kind of an ideal entity to maybe have a somewhat partnership to pick up on with some of these people as they start to move out of the startup and into the operational phase, where he would start to back up a little bit, but someone at SCORE might be a great hand holder to say, you know, these are the things that you need to be doing, and oh my God, no, you don't want to do that. Would that make any sense?
Yes, it would. So the SBDCs are, and we do quite a bit of work with them, and they do an excellent job. I mean, they're terrific. And a lot of them have gotten into starting up incubators. So, for example, in Volusia County, where I live, there's a big incubator that's been going now for 3 or 4 years. And we work really closely with all of the companies that have come into their incubator, and they've taken them through basically the startup. And they have to qualify to become a resident in the incubator business and so on. And then we try to help them take it from the incubator into their first location, help them expand their business.
Well, and with Alan, he has various funds that are available to him.
Exactly.
For example, right now, he's got over $50,000 that are COVID comeback related. You need someone that's going to come in and look at how you're marketing your
prior to, and how you may have to change your marketing as a result of. And so he then can use those funds to bring in an actual professional to work with one of his clients. And of course, because it's made a community college, it had for so many years, he has so many local contacts that he can refer people to. So that's why I was going to allow SCORE may really be great as an addition to those services for those people, particularly that's doing startup.
Yeah, I actually was, about 3 or 4 years ago, went down to Spruce Climbing School to one of the classes at Maple. And tried to, say, if you're thinking of getting a business started once you get out of school or whatever. We do also do some work with Lise McCrae at their students. I do some work with App State, mostly with the marketing department. And we've done 2 or 3 projects up there now where the students are looking for a senior class project where they need to work with an actual business. So we've got in SCORE clients that we think could benefit from having the student involved because it's obviously free to them and so on. So we're always looking for opportunities like that. And so sure, I don't know the particular individual you're talking about. The guy that, Belinda, you may have introduced me to that fellow that used to be down in Mayland. I think he's retired now.
Brother Branch was down there.
Was it?
You know, he's one retired. Alan Cook is the one now.
No, I don't know that name. The fellow I remember vividly because his passion was rock climbing.
Oh, yeah, that's Robert.
Okay. And I was intrigued by some of the stories about his rock climbing. Yes.
Chamber director
Okay.
for years.
And so yeah, anything like that would be great. And we don't compete with anybody. We're not worried about. We just don't want to duplicate efforts or waste time and money of people and so on. So that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like it's such a natural, coming together of services, each one providing the service that maybe the other, because of time restraints. And then the personalization of working with someone like yourself that you get to know, and that means a lot when you have a confidence in your mentor.
I think every SCORE mentor tends to approach it differently. I really personally like to, if I have someone calls me or comes on the internet and says, I want to start a construction business, or I want to do this. My first instinct is we'll talk through the business basics and all that stuff. But then I try to go into the SCORE chapter and find somebody that has that relevant background, because I just believe that's just a much more efficient use of everybody's time for them to talk to somebody that's actually done something in that industry. But that's just a personal bias of mine. That's why I tend to contact the people in places that know my background. If it's a bed and breakfast, or if it's a hotel, motel, or whatever, they say, would you talk to this individual? So I think that just makes more sense to personally. And the thing that, this is basically, I don't know the exact statistics, but hospitality tourism has to be, I would think, the biggest employer in this county. I would think maybe secondly to agriculture. I don't know, but it would be pretty high. And that slide ride you've got going down there, I mean, my God, I don't know how cash flow is doing, but that traffic wise, they're doing terrific.
They're doing good.
I guess they had a little bit of a problem with the parking and so on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I guess that a long time ago.
Yeah, when we first came up here, the second week of May, first time we drove into Banner Elk, it was like, what's going on? There's like traffic on both sides of this road. And there was kids running across the road and back and forth. And I thought, what is this? And then I remembered that is it Tara or Tamara or something, the lady that's
Yeah.
that's doing that. And God bless her. It looks like right now, it looks like a success. I heard that it's doing well. And they've made an arrangement with the one of the local ski shops to have overflow parking down there, which is a godsend for everybody. So it's going to be pretty dangerous.
Particularly the people that don't want to go there, but want to just continue on to the fair and go back out.
But that's,
Any other questions?
I'd just like to make a comment, actually. It's been up on Beach Mountain too, and there's another couple of people in the high country who've come up. And we have several businesses that have had mentoring. It's been extremely helpful and very positive. And Alan is wonderful. It's wonderful to be able to go to the Small Business Center at Community College and get everything Alan can do for you and everything that Kane can do for you.
And that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, and they've also done workshops for us. We've come up and do workshops, and I've partnered with Melinda. We've done workshops for the high country too, which is just wonderful. There's just this wealth of knowledge, and we are very fortunate.
and we have, maybe you met Chris Bergman. He's one of our new high country score mentors who's out of Omaha Beach. And he's spends half the year here, half the year in South Florida. And Chris is a very, very knowledgeable guy, so I'm delighted to have him involved. So we also did last year for the Moon Chamber, we did a hospitality. I shouldn't say we didn't escort it into it. I worked with Mysteria in putting together her with some people that had done a hospitality training program. And so they took it and ran with it, and they were putting the hotels and motel people through it that wanted to participate. So that was not, other than introduction, I didn't really do that. But that's the kind of thing that we can also put together as needed. So,
Thank you.
okay. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
They were talking at one time about trying to convince people, one of my favorite Dave Ramsey quotes. Talked to somebody one day, they were talking about, he said, you don't have a business, you have a hobby. And the hobby is not a business.
I love this show. I think it's so right on the money most of the time. The one question I have for you, one of the things that I'm having trouble getting up here is information about visitors to the area. Is there a good source of people that can?
Linda is the director of Avery County Chamber. That's what I'm pointing at. Linda, probably one of the most fantastic chambers going, bar none. From the standpoint of wanting to know what's happening in Avery County, what's going to be happening, where is it, what are the times, the information that they put out is just incredible.
The other thing I would share with you is we are also looking right now for a case study for App State third-year marketing program, third-year students that are looking to have a customer or client business to do a project with for the fall term, fall semester. And if we don't have time for the fall semester, then would be the winter semester. But we're looking for. I had one that I thought was a perfect match, and then COVID-19 suggested to him that he was going to rethink what he was doing and delay it for a while. So. But that's the other kind of thing you could really help us with that. And Linda and her staff have been great too in terms of working with us.
Well, can we have the sign-in box as all things we do? And then we take everything and we compile it and put it in an Excel file of when they come, if they will sign in. Also with our Woolly Worm packet, we have a sign-in sheet and all of our events. So see, we have that information, for people that we can get.
Okay. So, first thing order of business is to approve and amend. I know there was a request to amend minutes. By joining us virtual. Was that taken care of?
Yes, sir.
So we can vote on it.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
So I would entertain a motion to approve our May 18th meeting minutes.
Thank you. Happy early 4th of July.
Yes.
I'll make the-
Oh, I'm sorry, Kate. And then a second to the motion.
I'll second it.
All those in favor signify by raising their hand. Looks like that was unanimous. Okay, what we're going to do is defer the website development project status update to the July meeting. And as you're all aware, we really only have two companies that we consider given our current budget. And I'm going to ensure that at our July meeting, we will not have a guest speaker. Dennis has already loaded both of those proposals into the smart board in the commissioner's room. What I'd like us to do, if everybody agrees, by having them in the smart board, we can look at them, we can ask questions, discuss, and decide is this something that we want to take action on, and if we do, then we would have to put it to the board of commissioners. So we will be looking at those two.
Will that be available online before? Or just real time over there?
Well, you would have both, I sent both proposals, all the members.
Yeah.
Individually. I just thought that by.
Those are the ones, okay.
So that everybody will be coming to the meeting knowledgeable. And by able to put it up on the smart board, now we could talk about the pros and cons of those two companies. And make a decision if we want to go with one or the other.
Well, I will, just in preface to that, and certainly that's fine to do at that point. But I know one of the, concerns, questions, however you want to term it, of the project is how is this going to be different than and enhance what is already available? Are we reinventing the wheel? And where is the direction and the impetus for that coming from, and the leadership for it going forward after it's implemented?
And if I may, Dennis, what I would say is, I think we've done a really fine job going from no economic development webpage to what we have. But it is static. If you look at other counties, they are far more exciting, intuitive, informative relative to the types of questions that particularly someone who is not all that familiar with the counties that they may be considering are looking for. And so what I see that we're going to be discussing is exactly some of that. Is when we look at what they propose to do for Avery County, do we as a committee agree that what we are seeing is something that we feel confident enough that we would then want to pass it on to you to say, yes, this is worthwhile. This is the goals that we would hope to attain within the first year. Who knows, Dennis? We may look at it and say, there's really not that much improvement. And I think one of the things that hit us, and I've included you, is that we've actually excluded the number of companies because their starting figures are 20,000 plus.
I've been getting the emails, and I guess a couple of meetings that we had one, or maybe one virtual meeting I missed, and I was gone, I think, last time there was an actual one. So as I've been trying to keep up with the correspondence, through the minutes and through what's the discussion, and that's just kind of the long and short of it of where, you know.
And I think you're right. In other words, if we're not, but if we were looking at one of these $20,000 plus companies, in many ways, they are reinventing the wheel, because what they're saying is we're going to take what you have and basically double it. And we're going to start over, and we're going to build you this fantastic website. What we liked about the two companies that we'll be looking at is they're going to, in essence, expand what we already have and make it hopefully that much more target-based relative to the small business type of individual that would be looking at Avery County, and expanding the kind of information that that person is looking at. What I have said to the people that I've spoken to is the decision maker is not going to necessarily be the person that's looking at the site. It's going to be that person going at home, or who goes home these days, that'll be that person going out of their office and sitting down with their spouse or their other in the evening and talking about what they're looking at. And what I'm pushing for is to have Avery County be at the top of that list. And so it's not so much about, what commercial sites we have, what are our tax bases. It's a lot to me about the quality of life, our education system, our healthcare, et cetera, et cetera. So this is what we're going to be talking about to really give the Avery County website punch to that probably very knowledgeable new or experienced entrepreneur. One of the conversations that I had with Alan Cook last week, and he brought this up, was his expectation that there is going to be another exodus from the urban areas. The combination of COVID-19 and some of the things that are happening in the more metropolitan areas are going to be driving people to go to areas that they feel more safe, that they're more comfortable having the children out and about, et cetera, et cetera.
We're already saying that.
So again, we want to be able to have these people, when they're looking at Avery County, saying, wow, boy, do I ever like what I see when I hit those keys. And that really is, if you talk to Dave or anybody else, for example, in real estate, very few people walk into real estate offices cold anymore. They're going in very, very knowledgeable based upon the amount of internet research that they've done. So that, I don't know if that answers your question, but that to me is going to be the crux of what we're going to spend our time on next month, comparing these two proposals.
Now, are those offering the 3 years?
Yes.
So that-
Only the one, local intel, that's offering that 3 year.
Okay. Would be the 3 year, would we not just want to go ahead and give something free to kind of see?
In talking, it's free once it gets developed. But I think that if we don't work in the other aspects of the payment part, in developing that free piece is not going to have that much punch to it.
I guess I thought it was.
But there was a module, yeah.
There is a module, but we need to help them understand what are they going to put in there. And again, that's going to be part of what we're going to be talking about next month. And I'm going to see if we can have, you know me with my names, the two gentlemen from either company, if we can have them potentially block out that hour, and if we wanted to call them, if we could, very specific question that we wanted to ask. And, you know, it would not surprise me if this is going to carry over into August. But I think we really need, I guess, and Dennis, you could probably confirm this for me. My sense is we have a huge responsibility as EDC to, if we're going to go forward with this, to be able to have the ammunition that makes the Board of Commissioners say, we're comfortable, you know, in buying this package, whichever package it is. And I think we need more than just the 3 months. We can talk about that.
I think we need to be real sure that there is an integration of whatever is done into the county as a whole, as opposed to differentiating the EDC as a separate entity. That's a concern.
And I
That it takes, you know, that would be the entry point, rather than focusing on the entirety of Avery County government, Avery County chamber, things are, you know, they're already here. And we don't want to, I don't think, want to use this as kind of a not in opposition in terms of purposefully, but to not integrate and coordinate with all the other sites and information that's there.
Yeah, I suspect that one of the things that we've heard this last month is right now, when you click on economic development, you basically are looking at a menu page. And then you're going to select from that menu page. And it's really very static. It's quite frankly, it's not very interesting. It is if you, for example, go to the resource director and you know specifically, I have a question. Where could I get startup capital? You got a ton of information on the resource director that will point you in that direction, both from the standpoint of who they are, what they do, and here's specific content. I suspect that what we're going to hear is that now when you click on economic development, whether it stays up at the top or not, is the question. You're going to go to a very interactive, intuitive site that says, boom, here you are, here's pertinent information, and that's what we're going to be looking at. And I think we saw that. Eliminate what we saw when we were talking to Don last month when we actually had him as in our virtual meeting.
I'll give you an example of what you're talking about, Dennis. A few years ago, my former employer, the Employment Security Commission, engaged a web page developer to help folks who were looking for employment and paid them a lot of money. And basically all they did was take monster.com and change the wording. I mean, they sold us something that was already out there. That's what you're talking about, right?
It is to a degree.
We
And
don't want to buy what's already exists. And we know that.
there's a certain amount of redundancy.
Mhm.
And the other question I think that would be relevant to discuss in terms of Fort County Commission is who's going to manage the data and who's going to manage what's on the site. Because that's pretty critical responsibility. And
Well, for example, with local intel, these are the people that were participated at the last. They actually provide a quarterly report that gives you a lot of what we understand information relative to what are the hits, how long are the hits, where are they looking, et cetera, et cetera. So that you do have a sense of, are we addressing our objectives and our goals and what we would like to accomplish. And I would just simply say, Dennis, my own background, if I was involved in site selection because I'm going to move my business or grow my business by taking an additional facility somewhere, we don't really cut it. We've got great information for someone that I think is in business and has a question and thinks, well, with the economic development site helping out, but for the person that is actually doing site selection work, in my opinion, we are failing this. And that's the people we're looking for. I mean, the other aspect, for example, Jerry Moody is going to be talking with people in Canada. Similar agricultural project that was done in St. Okay. Boy, would I love to have something that when Jerry was talking to these people in Canada, and Jerry could say, take a look at our economic development site, see what you think, and have them go and say, wow. You know, that's what we're looking at. And I think one of the things that I wouldn't have anticipated starting at 20, I would have anticipated starting more at 15. But when you're talking about developing, for example, if we did not have any kind of website, and we said, okay, now it's time to do it. We're not going to do it internally. We're going to job it out. We're going to have somebody design it for us. That's a chunk of change. And I think if we can basically make what we have that much more attractive to that individual site selection person, that's going to help Avery County, not necessarily just short term, because golly, short term, I mean, how many people would be thinking about starting a business in this month or the months ahead? But long term, this is going to turn around. And as Dave said, and Alan Cook said, as this exodus gets underway, we want to go somewhere away from this urban center that we're currently at. That's where I really would love to see Avery County shine, really shine.
But Kevin, it's just like we have talked at the very beginning, that we need to show these new things that are coming, that we're building in our town, so other people can see that we're moving forward. I mean, I would love to see us include some of the new homes being built to show that aspect of what we're doing. And I think that will say a whole lot.
I mean, for example, Dennis, if the folks at the old mill site, if you get their grant, that would allow them to build an 85-unit apartment complex that is not income dependent. Wow, now we're starting to address one of our biggest problems, and that's lack of housing. And I'm with Dave there, having the ability to incorporate something like that if and when it happens, and do it very intuitive, exciting manner. That's what Avery County needs to do to compete with our competition. And we've got a lot of competition in the high country.
But, you know, in one situation, I disagree with that, because if they're bringing in low-income housing for tax purposes, I think we don't need that. I truly do. I think we need to show a positive movement instead of something that we're settling for.
Okay, that's what I meant.
Oh, okay.
No, what I meant was the kind of apartment housing that a brand new school teacher at the high school would be interested in, rather than saying, well, I can't even go in here because my income is such that I don't qualify. So what do I have to do? I got to take an apartment in Boone, and I got to commute. To be able to say, wow, I'm going to have a gorgeous apartment that I can afford to pay for right here in Millwood. That, when it happens, is going to be
I'm hoping that we can sit down and work on that, and, you know, with this new.
I have a note here that I buy you lunch and pick you bread.
All
right.
Well, I think that. So,
because we are almost out of time. Yes,
I'm sorry,
yes.
if we're gonna defer until the July meeting, we need a motion of the second.
I make such a motion.
Second? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Okay, no, great. Thank you, Susan. Then real quick, Stella, anything hot that you want to share with us?
Trade now, the ARC grant is in, thanks to Melinda and I think Council Scott on Scott, hopefully that's in the paper this week about the expansion of what they're doing through, internet.
There was some of it in last week.
So there was some last week, so great. The Dollar General going in on 19E, the Green Valley community, the first through here, no one's open. As far as the new one strip mall, there's been kind of quiet. There are doing some patching on the pavement, but it's limited. The structural people will be here this week. They've been working with Keith. It's been great. John Newman for the water sewer, all that. So I'll look for an announcement from them. They will get the wrong press conference. Or press release, sorry. Press release on that.
Victoria.
Urgent care will be open July 13th. And at the old Dr. South Pharmacy, South Town Hall, 7 days a week. That's gonna be huge. And the Louise and the Curtis building, we kind of set them back a little bit, but they hope to open mid-July. Did you hear anything else?
I think so, that's what I heard.
Then Hawkins mentioned the we'll go from there. And I apologize again for the double booking at the room.
Okay. Did we ever get anything back, from Michelle on the?
She has it, and she knows, and I was hoping. Killing her.
Okay.
One way.
Then, real quick, as you see,
Thanks a lot about it.
I'm going to make a motion that we eliminate the outdoor recreation subcommittee and that we replace it with the residential housing subcommittee. And at the time of my motion, which I'm making now, I'm including that I will be appointing Eric for the chairperson. Is there a second to my motion?
Can I make a quick comment before that? I want to do a first and final report based on what I did with the tourist team. Maybe next time or all.
Okay, yeah, because I don't know how quickly we're going to have a bunch of people. So does the motion die without a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Raising your hand, I will vote. Yes, I have to. It looks like it passes. That said, I appoint Eric as the subcommittee chair. Is there anything else on the agenda that anyone feels we really need to address before we vacate the building? You all see next meeting, Monday, July 27th. The commissioners conference room.
Thank you.
We were early. We were early there.
Actually, we have to get our swimsuits.
And I'm not, I mean, I could share this, I'm not sure if the reason that Jerry isn't here. I know that, last week he was traveling to Florida, his father. Then if there isn't anything and it's a minute to 6, there's no objection to closing the meeting. Hearing no objections, the meeting is